Welcome everybody. Hi, welcome. We are thrilled that you're here. Welcome to Madlearn's Teacher Takeover. We are in our third year of doing this event every spring, where we highlight some fantastic educators across the country, let them share their stories with us and answer questions. The point of today is for you to hopefully learn a new idea, meet a new friend, and ask a ton of questions to see what things are and what some possibilities are for you, for your students, for your classroom. So we are thrilled that you're here today. Welcome to Teacher Takeover. We've got some phenomenal educators here with us today, and some really fun things that we're excited to hear and share with you. But first things first, we want to hear who you are. So please open up that chat for us, and tell us a little bit about you. Introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us where you're coming in from, what you teach, any of that good stuff. So we can again, if nothing else, meet a new friend and be able to leave with a new idea. So please do, as you're coming in. We're going to give folks just a second to trickle in. So as you are coming in, please do introduce yourself in the chat, and tell us a little bit about you. I am Alethea Master. I am the founder and CEO of Madlearn. Very, very proud to be here with some of my amazing team members who are going to introduce our teachers today. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and we have a phenomenal global team, team members from India, from Ghana, and all over the United States. So welcome. Please do introduce yourself in the chat, and tell us a little bit about you. I see Sue is here, a middle school business class in Penfield. Awesome. Hi, Sue. I know you're going to be starting with your kiddos soon, so very excited. Tamara is here from DeKalb County, and you teach entrepreneurship. Hello, Tamara. Nice to have you. Hi, Fran. Fran is here from Clark County, and I know Fran is over the computer science initiatives in Clark County, Nevada. So welcome, welcome. Coach Hicks is here. Hey, Victor. And Coach Hicks runs an awesome program called Coding with Culture, so definitely check him out. And we're so glad that you're here. So yeah, keep that coming. Good stuff here. But again, welcome to Teacher Takeover, our third, I believe, annual event highlighting our phenomenal educators. As I said, I'm Alethea Master. I'm the founder and CEO. I have my phenomenal colleague here with me, Doreen Frempong, who is from Accra, Ghana. She is our queen of social media and our queen of our internship program. So Doreen, say hello. Tell us a little bit about our internships.
Hi, Alethea. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alethea, for introducing me. And hi, everyone. We're so glad you're here today. So as Alethea said, my name is Doreen Frempong, and I'm dialing in from Accra, Ghana. Madlearn runs a wonderful internship program that I manage. So once your students are able to do Madlearn in the classroom or in some capacity, they qualify to be part of our wonderful internship program, where they get to learn about real skills, they get to do real life work and experience what it is like to work in a global team. It's a virtual internship, so they can join us from wherever they are. Over the years, we've had several students, hundreds of students join us on this journey, and it's been a wonderful one. So thank you all for coming today, and we're excited you're here.
Brilliant. Thank you, Doreen. And speaking of that global team, this is who we are. Like I said, we are from all over, and we're thrilled to be able to bring Madlearn to your classroom in some powerful ways. So we have some amazing special guests here today to share their stories and their passion with us. I am going to hand over to Alexandra Cummernis, who is our curriculum and implementation specialist. She is our queen of curriculum and coming up with new ideas and new activities for you to do in the classroom. So Alexandra, tell us a little bit about you. And I know you're going to be introducing Cassie to us today.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. So my name is Alexandra Cummernis. As Alethea said, I am in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was a teacher for a very long time before I started working for Madlearn. I've been here about 2.5 years now, and I get to work with teachers, I get to work with students, I get to do, I feel like, all the best things of teaching on a regular basis. So it's lovely and fun, and I've learned a ton about tech and coding and all the things. And I have the honor of introducing Dr. Cassie Zielinski today. Cassie is a STEM teacher at Mountain View Elementary in Cobb County. She was actually Teacher of the Year last year. She's been teaching for over 30 years now. She does a little bit of everything. She loves all things STEM, especially space exploration. And we were lucky enough this year to visit her STEM lab, got to see firsthand what she's doing with students, and we were blown away. It's really cool. It's her first year using MadLearn, and she is going to share today what she did in her STEM lab and also talk a little bit about the process of how she had students collaborate to come up with their app concepts and ideas. So I am going to hand it over to Cassie and let her tell you all the things she's done that are amazing in her STEM lab.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be coming from. Let's just go ahead and just get the whole globe thing done. I have to apologize, right in my name right there. That's actually my call sign for the radio. I do ham radio, so I forgot that was on there. So it's not some weird thing. It's actually a call sign. I teach at Mountain View Elementary School. This is my 32nd year of teaching. My first 27 was in high school and college, and my friends said I needed a change, and then COVID hit. So I changed to elementary and then COVID and then push in. And so I'm the STEM specialist. I love it. It's so different. I never thought I'd be teaching K through 5. But the way I handle it is I don't really look at them as K through 5. Yes, they're young students, but they're still students. And so they are curious as can be. I had no idea the amount of questions. The questions though range everywhere. And so being that this is my 5th year at Mountain View, I knew what I was going to get in terms of questions. I actually found MadLearn at a conference and I was like, ooh, what's this? Because I like technology and everything. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to this and see what this is about. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can totally use this in my class. So I teach six different days. It's called a 6-day rotation. And I teach every student in the elementary school. So I have over 840 students every 6 days. I have K through 5 every single day. My class ranges from 20 students to 30 students. And I did this in grades 3, 4, and 5. I thought I'd be venturous with grade 3, and it was a venture. The way I set this up is, I know I'm going to kind of be all over the place because that's kind of how my brain works. I set this up so that they got to pick their friends with their team. Most teams had 2 to 3 students in it. And I did that because I wanted them to feel comfortable with who they were working with. They're going to know their friends better than anybody. And because I was brand new to this also, I was learning at the same time. I let them pick topics. If it was a tie, they had to do rock, paper, scissors. I'm not going to lie, because I'm not going to have arguing in the room. So rock, paper, scissors takes care of a lot of things. And so they got to pick their topics. And then what they had to do is they had to come up with just keywords that would relate to their topic. So one friend was in charge of their piece of paper. Their other friend was in charge of another piece of paper. And they were writing down their own ideas on their own pieces of paper. And then what I had them do is then they had to collaborate and talk with each other and find out what common words they wrote down. They got to pick their top 2 topics. Like for me, it would be dogs and Jeeps. So one friend would have dogs and the other person had Jeeps. And then they figured out what words were the same, like fun, playing, things like that. And they had to circle their words. So I was trying to kind of do it with an ELA background also. So they had to match words, then they had to draw lines because I knew that there was that in the MadLearn app. And so they got practice then of drawing the lines, coming up with their keywords so that it creates then their tabs and all that. So they were doing this on paper first. We didn't even touch a computer for 3 weeks. They did all this on paper. Then once they realized what their keywords were, then they had to go to each keyword and define it in one sentence, because then I knew that was going to be the content that was going to go into their page. So they would have to write it down. We did different color matches. Like if it was blue, if we wrote blue, it meant this. If it was red, it meant this. We went through that process. They got all their thoughts on paper. Then came what would your logo look like? And I made sure that they knew we were designing our own, whether it was in Canva or it was in Wixie. We are making our own. We are not stealing somebody else's. We are smart enough and creative enough that we could do it ourselves. So then they had to draw on their paper, just simple little designs, what they thought their logo would be. And then that was their app. And all they had to do then was take what was on their paper and transform it into the computer. So then we started with the very beginning of our very first slide. You got to come up with a title. It's got to be 25 characters or less. That was fun because everybody wanted to talk about it. We can't talk about it. This is small. So they had to figure out, well, what do we say? Jeeps and dogs, dogs and Jeeps? What do we, that's not fun. And so they got to come up with their own ideas. Of course, they asked me, Dr. Z, can we change it later? Yes, we can always change it. So then they would move to the next screen and then I would show them, like the pop-ups and like, look, this is how we draw. Now do you see your 3 words? They're like, oh, no way. So then they realized they can change the color. They can change this. And then it was crazy. That day was crazy. And they got to move things. And so their thoughts became real. Their thoughts on paper were actually on the screen in front of them and they were moving them around where they thought was important. Now, what the hard part about that was, is they all wanted to do it at the same time. They think very much in real time. Like the second I make a change, it's going to show up on the screen. So when they're both working, there was like a little bit of lag in my room. And so then they realized, okay, we have to talk better. We both shouldn't be doing the same words. Why don't you take this tab and I'll take this tab? And so then they started splitting the duties because they realized it was not working while they're all trying to mesh at the same time. So then they naturally themselves started putting themselves in a priority of who should go first, who should go second. Well, if you're working on this, I can work on this. That way we're not wasting time. And so they started doing this themselves. And this is 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. All of us brand new doing this. We started the process in October and we were done by the end of December with our full app. I had I think it was like 263 different apps that they all came up with. I let everybody choose their own. I know in the training, it was like, pick a topic and then have them all do it. I wanted to see what would happen if I gave them a chance to do their own and see what they wanted to do. And they really went after it. This was their design. This was their logo. This was their words, our ideas. And they just took over. There was times where they were running, as much as I can't, they were running to class with their laptop in their hand, hurrying up, sitting down at the table. These are what, 9-year-olds sitting down at the table, getting out their laptop and going, can we log in now? And I mean, it was 43 minutes of work. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Changing their stuff on their paper. They had to have their paper every single time. They were not able to put their paper away and then try to remember everything. I also didn't allow them to erase. They had no erasers. They had to cross it off because I told them, you may need that idea later. And this way you still see it. And so they went through the whole process. I had students learn Python. I had students learn CSS, HTML, Java. They were doing this all on their own. They realized that they can start changing the different screens. Well, we don't need this. We need that instead. So they would go back and create a new screen. They were doing a lot of this on their own. The only time they would really even talk to me is if they had a question, like they weren't sure what screen to go to, or, where do we find our courses? Where do we find? It was all of that. The ideas though that they were coming up with was unreal. I mean, unreal. I didn't have a single thing that was the same. It went everywhere from sports to dog park design to, I mean, it was amazing what they were coming up with. I just let them go. They absolutely loved it. They ask about it all the time. And in fact, like I was saying earlier, I know I don't know if I'm going over my 10 minutes, that what we're doing is we're presenting at a high school next week, and 5 of the students wanted to create an app for it. So they're in charge of actually creating the app for the other students who are speaking. This way, everybody had a piece. I do a lot of stuff with space, and they wanted to do something with space. So they're creating all this on their own. So we're basically creating an app in a week. and they asked for the password. They're doing it at home right now. Like I'm getting emails from the kids right now saying, Dr. Z, can we put this in there? So they're doing this on their own. Their parents are all on board. Everybody's on board. They absolutely are having a blast. And so I just look at it as like, this is just a different way to teach, and let them go. Let's just let them go. They have ideas. I'm just there to kind of help them along and clarify some things, making sure we're not doing copyright infringement, stuff like that. But other than that, it was great. Like we had a blast, as you can tell. I'm still excited about it. So
I absolutely love hearing that, Cassie. I had heard some of your story, but definitely not all of this detail. So thank you so much for sharing. I love that you don't let them use erasers, because you never know when that idea is going to be relevant or good again. And if only we didn't have a delete button on our computers, that might be interesting. But I want to open it up to questions from the audience. So Cassie just shared her story of how she's doing app development with her elementary students in Cobb County in Georgia. So please, let's ask some questions. What are some things that you're thinking about? If you are in elementary yourself and you're kind of thinking through some things, or even if you're at middle or high school, but you heard something that Cassie said and you're like, how do you do that? Just tell me more about that. So please ask us questions. Go ahead and unmute if you'd like, or put it in the chat. I know folks are sharing about how they love your ideas, Kim. Kim shared sounds amazing, and Victor's been sharing that as well. So questions, any questions that we have for Cassie? Okay, so Fran has a question. Have you been able to share this with other elementary schools? Great question. Cassie,
that's a
how are
great
you sharing
question.
this with other schools in your district, or even in the state, in the country?
So the one I know is the one that you guys told me about, the one from Hawaii. So I knew that. So that one I knew. That was awesome. It's kind of been in passing. So some of the conferences that I speak at different conferences sometimes. And so I haven't gotten that part of my year started yet, but because we had visitors come to the lab, I've gotten questions now from other teachers, like emailing me, hey, like, what's this? What's that? I actually was fortunate enough to go to Kentucky. I'm working with a school in Kentucky on building up their STEM program. And one of their teachers, their health teacher, is interested in using the app to create a connection between PE and health in his classroom. And he teaches half of the day it's a very small school. He teaches half the day in middle school and half the day in high school. So that was a very interesting conversation, because I had to think outside of elementary and help with middle school and high school on what this could look like. Other than that, unless it's in passing, or if it's word of mouth, then yes, I have talked to some teachers. I would absolutely love to speak more about it, because I mean, it's phenomenal. It's fantastic. Like I said, the kids just go after it, but I don't have a problem. Like if anybody on here ever wanted to ask me a question and you felt like emailing me, knock yourself out, go ahead. I will answer. I'll help however I can. So, like I said, it was my first year and I absolutely fell in love. So.
Thank you, Cassie, and thank you, Fran, for that question. Any other questions for Cassie? Yes, Alexandra, go ahead.
I've got one. Cassie, you had such a cool idea for this year. If you were to redo this again next year and still have kids, collaborate and think about, finding something in common, what would you restructure for next year? Because I know you said the kids like initially kind of fought it. So what can teachers kind of take away from your learning experience? What would you suggest that they do maybe differently, or what would you do to improve it?
I think the first thing I would do is do one myself. I did bits and pieces just because I was curious to see, what does this tab do? What did that do? But I would actually create one myself. I found there was two that, so when I first started, I asked the kids, like, what, if they wanted an app, what would they have an app about? And some talked about food, or they talked about their country and things like that. So I probably would have asked this question. I always give this, kind of like this survey at the beginning of the year to find out a little bit about the students, what's changed with them over summer, things like that. I would add these couple questions in. I would add, if you had a chance to build an app, what would it be? if you wanted to change one thing in your community and an app was the way to do it, what kind of information would you want? And then I would also ask them, what do you feel comfortable with? Like, do you have coding experience? Have you worked on a robot? Do you like computers? Things like that, because there were some that wanted to be the person who did the background and like the design and the pictures and the colors. They did not want to do the coding part. So I think in the very beginning, finding out what their interests are and then tailoring it and finding those apps that are already on your store that has some of their ideas in it, because I want them to see about student ideas. I don't want them to really see about my idea. I want them to see about what other students created. This way I can say, hey, this is an elementary student also, look what they did. This way they have a reference point of, oh, if they did that, why can't I do that? They're in elementary, so am I. And then mine would be the mine would be the one that has like the extra in it. Like if you wanted to change your background to this is how you would do it. If you wanted to do Canva instead of Wixie, this is how you would add it in. If you want to do different kind of coding, you need to go to the HCJ builder. So that's how I would change it. I would start a little bit different and I would get more information at the beginning rather than waiting for them to write it down on paper, because then I was reading all their papers, trying to figure out. So I would have put more time in the beginning to get it more organized. Does that make more sense? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a great answer, especially with elementary school kids, because sometimes it helps to give a little structure before they go completely into it.
Yeah.
So love that.
Thank you so much, Cassie, for sharing. And the questions that you asked the kids, I know you're going to add some slides in here for us to share with the audience later. Please put those questions in there as well, because those were we have some questions in our ideation part of the curriculum, but I love the questions that you asked and how you posed it. So please write those down for us. Sue, Sue has a question. Susan, go ahead.
I do. I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Sunitas. I'm teaching upstate New York outside of Rochester. And I haven't actually used the program yet. I mean, I've played with it a lot. I teach the class that I'm going to be doing this work with is the week after next. And it's a sixth grade class called Computer Concepts. I'm a certified business teacher. I don't know of any other schools in the area that do what I do, that teach what I teach. I guess I'm part of CTE, but I'm kind of different too. So I don't know. But I was really I've been looking for an app development program for a really long time, but couldn't use any of them because they're of the COPA law, right? So the under 13, all my kids are under 13, so I couldn't use it. So I mentioned it in a meeting back in the fall, and our director of tech said, hey, let's connect you with our BOCES here, which is like an overarching, I don't know if you understand, like, I don't know, we're like kind of an overarching
education service agency.
Sure, yep. Education service agency, much better way to say it. And so they connected me with you guys. So I'm so thrilled. So actually starting tomorrow, I'm teaching JavaScript to the kids using P5JS, which is a platform, and they code little self-portraits, which is really fun. And they can do so much with it. And then after that, we're doing an app project. The app project that I decided to do, which I don't know if I've bitten off more than I can chew or not, but we'll see. I have so it's 10-week classes. At every 10 weeks, I have a new set of 80 kids in 4 sections, basically. So I have all this, I have 300, roughly 353 and change, 6th graders every year, different, kids. So I see every child, not 800, but close. Sometimes it feels like that. And I see them every day for 10 weeks. So what I'm hoping to do, and we've started the ball rolling. There is a teacher, we do something in the elementary building. We just started the buildings. We have 4 in our district called Dream Lab. And Dream Lab is a CTE, computer science digital fluency standards for New York State kind of program where certain teachers that are teachers on special assignment go into elementary classes, whatever, doesn't matter. But anyway, so I have a connection with the elementary buildings. And I wrote a survey, really simple, like 5-question survey. And it's all about so in our building, in our district, it's K5 and then 6-8 and then 9-12. So I really wanted to do an app that would be service oriented for the students. So I said, wouldn't it be cool to do an app for 5th graders coming into 6th grade, all about like the transition and try to ease the transition between the elementary school and the middle school. There's a lot of stress, there's a lot of anxiety around that piece. So we did a survey and about 150 kids responded, and they did it through the Dream Lab. So there's some connection there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have each class of 20 kids, give or take, make an app for each of the 4 elementary buildings. So I'm going to have the kids broken down into pairs or teams, or maybe into 3s like you suggested. And we'll already have the categories listed as far as their areas, because it's on the survey, things like, social issues, not issues, but social concerns, getting around the building. We have a really large building here, academic things. So there's like 7 different categories. What I'm stuck on is how to I really do want them to have choice. And I made a note about whether you want it to be a coder kid, or, a graphic design kind of style kid, or even a content, if you want to write the content for each of the areas. So that is something that I'll have them do a survey with, who would you like to work with, and make sure that I'm pairing at least 2 of the 3 kind of kids in a group or in a team. So they're not 2 coder kids or 2 design kids. And then I'm not sure how to get them to do the content. Like I'm falling down on that piece. Like I've got it. I feel like I'm 90% there. I just need that little boost to kind of figure out the next piece. So I've created 4 sections in the app or in the program. And now I'm just kind of like, how am I going to assign it? How is it going to look? How is it going to get built? And how are we doing the branches piece? Is that something that I should do for them? Should they do that for themselves? Is it one kid that's doing that piece? Am I doing that? So that's kind of where I'm falling down. So we have the 7 categories. I have things underneath it. I also have the results of the survey from the students. So maybe those will get trimmed down to maybe 5 or 6, but now I just don't know what to do next.
So
Sue, that is, sorry, Cassie.
Go ahead.
So Sue, thank you for giving us the context and then the question, because that's very helpful for us to kind of understand. I saw Victoria's hand up. So Victoria, you go first, and then Cassie, tell us your ideas, and anyone else in the room, please share ideas with Sue. Victoria, go ahead.
Hi, Sue. Since everyone's doing the same app, right? The same concept. I highly recommend that you do some of that mapping with your. How old are they? They're in 3rd to 6th grade. Did you say?
6th only, 6th grade.
Only 6th.
6th grade. You might, since it's the first time they're doing something like this, you might want to maybe do the mind mapping together, because they're going to be as creative as they want to be when they create their screens. They'll be able to take it from there. If your mind mapping is only going to have like a word on it anyway. And so each of them will take that word, and it's going to have different meaning to each one of them. But since they've never done it before, I really think it would be very helpful to model that with them, and then they can work from that.
Okay. So I would set the mind map up for each of my 4 sections. And then they would take it and run from there. And obviously, so 2 or 3 kids, you guys are going to take getting through the hallways. You guys are going to take navigating the lunchroom.
You can have them all go on to Mad Learn and have them have the mind map open, and on you have a whiteboard?
Yeah.
So do yours on the whiteboard. So you're writing it on the whiteboard, but they're responsible themselves to put the mind map in themselves. This way they'll have that model. They can always, what we can say.
But if it's 1 app per class, so I'm gonna end up with 4 apps, 1 for each of the 4 elementary buildings. If it's 1 app per class, I would think I would need to do the mind mapping maybe with them together, like I do it. I'm not sure. That's the part I'm falling down on.
That's okay. No, that's what this is for. So since it is 1 app for 1 class, I would definitely recommend doing a class brainstorming and throwing up a bunch of words on the board, figuring out on the board how to have it be organized, and then together you're putting it into that mind map for your single app. So that might definitely be a recommendation. Cassie and Coach. So Cassie, go ahead.
So what I was thinking is similar to that. Do the sixth graders have, like, do you have an opportunity to walk around the school? Like, they can walk around and be like, okay, when I got here, I didn't understand what this hallway was. And so then they can like you can go around with, I don't know if you have iPads or anything like that, but you can go around, like, take a picture and then be like, okay, how can we describe this? So that when they walk in the building, the first thing that they see is, you're going to see this hallway. On your left, kind of like a tour guide. On your left, you've got this. On your right, you've got this. And then you can, when they start coming up with their little mind map, they might only have 2 or 3 words for one particular hallway, and they might have 20 for a different one. That would be the one that then you can break apart, and then you can give different students in the class, like, all right, why don't you handle where the gym and the cafeteria is, what the process is for there, and this team can handle this, this, and this. This way, then they're still responsible for their own, but they're still also putting in their feelings of when they were. I know what I was like when I went into a bigger school. The cafeteria was like, whoa, what's going on? And some cafeterias now, like, I don't know, I know ours does, like, they have like, here's where the sandwiches are, here's where this is. And so like, you can actually go into a lot of detail. I would put the mind map on the wall. Like Victoria said, I would have a big group session and then start taking those words apart and be like, can we use the same kind of words for this hall, that hall, and this experience? Is there, like, do we need to talk to them about buses? Do we need to talk about, like, the bus procedure? Do we need to talk about any other procedures? And so this way, because with class of 20 students in it, you can separate that into 10 groups of 2 and have 10 different things going on all within that one app. And this way, then everything is getting accomplished, but it's still their decision because they were the ones who were experiencing it when they were walking through the halls, or when they were talking to the teachers, or when they experienced the cafe for the first time, when they experienced their first like school assembly, things like that. That way, then you have your small little groups. They're still responsible for what's happening in the school for those different areas, but the overall arching theme is still the class ideas. I don't know if that helps.
No, I think that's really good. I think, letting them in the hallways, we have a pretty strict we have policies around that, but what I can do is do a folder of pictures of the building and they can pull things from that. There's no reason I couldn't share that, we have a team, we have teams in our building, so I could totally do that and they could take what they wanted to.
And you can even do a movie.
Because we only have a week, by the way. We only have a week to do all this. So that's the other piece. So I'm trying to kind of squeeze this down into, manageable chunks to, 40-minute periods for 5 sessions. That's not a lot. So I'm trying to kind of front load it as much as possible so that they can still have creativity and still kind of get their point across and not end up with, because then the term ends. So like, it's like they have to get it done or else I'll end up with 4 incomplete apps and that would be bad. So, but I like the idea of pictures. I had not considered that before. That's a really good idea. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I can also just say quickly, we've run camps where students have created apps in 3 to 5 hours. They can do it. I promise. You can do it without time. It can be done, especially 6th grade. It's a good sweet spot.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Sue, for that question, and Victoria, Cassie, for those ideas. Amazing. So up next, we have Victoria McNaughton, who is here with us to share her story. But before we get to Victoria, I would like to introduce Caroline Westervelt, who is another one of my fabulous team members. She's also a curriculum and implementation specialist. And as you heard from all of the other introductions, we're all queens of something. So Caroline is the queen of coding and all things coding related, and helping us figure out how to manage that well in the classroom. So Caroline, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Victoria as she can share her story.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Caroline. Hi Sue, good to see you. So I just a little bit real quick. I'm a retired secondary school teacher, CTE. I taught electives, so I have certifications in a lot of things. And I wish somebody had told me when I was, in middle school how much fun coding was, because I would have done that my whole life. Not that teaching's not great, but this is so much fun. So I get to work with people like Victoria, who is amazing. If you see her with her students, she's got high school students and she's got them for part of the day. And She's got them. I went in, I went to visit her, I guess, back in October, November in her classroom, and she's got them doing Gantt charts and project management, and they are on it. She had her students create a shack app, which I'm sure she'll tell you about. But Victoria is just phenomenal and so much fun, and so glad they're here. So Victoria, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Wow, thank you. That was very nice.
You're welcome.
So I teach at Western Suffolk BOCES. I teach 11th and 12th graders for 2.5 hours every single day. So they are with me for half of their high school day. And I'm teaching them business applications and business, basically, entrepreneurship. So anyway, so I use MedLearn. I've been using it for a few years now, and it just has so many different possibilities. And that's what I really like about it. From year to year, I can just get my subscription and know I can change how I'm using it. And the kids get so much out of it. Can somebody are we moving through my slides? Oh, perfect. Okay, so I start off where I put my students into teams. And I have them decide what problem they can solve, because apps are problem solvers, whether it's for a social reason, whether it's for monetizing, whatever they decide, they have to take a stance with their team. And then I have them I taught them how to use a Gantt chart for scheduling. And as you can see on the sample on the slide here, I have them identify all of the different things that have to be done to create an app. And actually, let me just backtrack a second. Before I actually have them do this, I have them create an app just to learn how to use the software about themselves, because then they already know the content. This way, they're not researching content. They're just they're exploring how to create the app. So once we finish that, then I move them into a team project like this. So they create the Gantt chart by identifying all of the different things that they would have to do to make the app. And then they schedule the amount of days that it will take to complete it. And if you can look on my Gantt chart on this sample here, you'll see the date at the top, and you'll see different colors. Each color is a different student, and they make this themselves. They are accountable to their deadline. So I love this because it makes them think, it makes them plan, it makes them accountable. Every single day they would go down, and the sample Gantt chart that I gave you here, I think the first day I think all of them are purple. So the first day they were doing some things together. But every single day they have to have a meeting. They have to look at what the Gantt chart says each one of them is supposed to be completing. And then they have to write their meeting minutes and explain as to whether or not they are on schedule or off schedule, ahead of schedule, behind schedule, because I explained to them that things happen and we're never on schedule exactly as we plan. So this is just my way of explaining to them. I mean, I want them to feel like they're in an office. And this is what we're doing when we're in an office. And also, I tell them that when you tell your client that you're going to deliver their project at a certain time, how do you come up with that date? This kind of teaches that. I teach a lot of entrepreneurship. So each student has a role. They all have to be accountable to their role. If they're going to be programming anything, they're going to be the programmer. If they're going to be the person to get video content, that's what they have to do. But each one of them has a different role, and no roles can overlap. Okay, so my next slide. Okay, so we start with empathy, and I think that's the way you start any type of an app, by jumping into the shoes of the people who are going to use it. Otherwise, you really can't build. So I do lessons on empathy and how they need to think about how other people feel and the problems that they have, in order for them to really fully embody a solution. So the next slide. Okay. So what I love about MedLearn is that you use a design thinking process. This is what companies are using today, and you make it very simple, and it's all labeled in in the software. And I actually do a lesson where I have them research what companies use design thinking, and they'll look up Nike. And so they'll actually see that this is not just a school lesson. This is like the real deal. And I like that I can authenticate what MadLearn has on there. I've also implemented this year for the first time using AI. So in my opinion, this is my opinion, but I also have, I've been talking to a lot of people in business. If you're not using AI right now, you're not with it. You're not keeping everybody up to speed. So I have my students using AI as another collaborator. They have to, if they can't figure other ideas out, they're going into ChatGPT for ideas and other things that they just couldn't think about. And I got a little pushback on this at the beginning of the year. The kids are very unhappy about AI. I have a lot of artists in my class. They feel like it's taking away, the art field. We talk, they definitely, they're adjusting. They're adjusting. So anyway, what I'm finding with the AI is that their ideas are becoming even better because they have another tool to enhance their apps. The other thing that they're using AI for, and I did not expect this, was my students used AI. They threw the code in that MadLearn provided, and asked AI to help it with new code to do extra things. And sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't, and sometimes it didn't work and they fixed it. So it was a great, very exciting teaching tool in that regard. My son's a programmer and he's using AI. So I thought this was a really interesting twist. Okay, next slide. Okay, and here's a sample of that. So you can see the code here. This isn't my student's actual app. They made an app. We have a retail class and they have a store. So one of the projects that I had them do was to create an app for the stores. The retail class was their client, and they had to come up with questions to ask their client. They had to figure out their deadline and tell the teacher when they were going to produce this app for them. And they had to take a look at the entire store and write down all the products and inventory and prices. They had to load all that into the app. But what was interesting is that the AI made the order sheet. They used AI to help with the order sheet. And my student figured out how to make a really nice order form so that when it emailed the teacher, I'm sorry, the app was going to be, I'm sorry, let me backtrack. The students were going to be able to order on the app, and then the teacher would receive an email that had the order on it. But the students figured out how to make it look really nice and had made it how to make it calculate for the teacher. So when the order came in, it itemized all of the snacks that the student wanted and the total so that the store did not have to add up the total for them. So it was just really exciting. I think I'm ready for the next slide. Okay, after they're done, they have to present their app. So I tell them that each person has a role. If they're not a good public speaker and they don't want to speak, they don't have to. They can assign someone that role, but they have to put together the presentation, and all of them had to come up to the front of the classroom to support one another, even though one person was speaking. I have had students who came in with high anxiety, would not ever speak. By the end of the year, they're speaking, and it's amazing. So really exciting stuff that we've watched over the years. So they were improving their presentation skills. I was able to integrate PowerPoint into the project because I am teaching Microsoft Office and getting them certified Microsoft Office. And you can see in this image that I have here, I know it's really hard to see, but this is the Snack Shack presentation. So, and actually in this project, we had one boy who was willing to, who used AI in the coding, and we had a really great artist on the team. And so all that art was all hand drawn, nothing was taken. They wanted it to be completely proprietary, and that's what they got. So I think that was my last slide, right? It was, yes. So this is how I'm using it. I'm pulling in all different types of entrepreneurial experiences for them, collaborations, presentations, scheduling, working for a client. It's extremely successful. These kids are really confident and they're walking away very competent. And that is my story.
They sure are, Victoria. And such a fabulous comparison and juxtaposition to hearing Cassie and how she does the work with her elementary students in her setting, and you and how you're doing this at a much more advanced, much more in-depth level for your high school students and with that business focus. I love that they have a customer and they're building the app for their customers. So that is absolutely fantastic. Let's hear questions for Victoria. I'm going to go back to her lovely headshot right here. But questions for Victoria. Tell us ideas, feedback, questions, anything that popped out at you that you want to learn more about. Very different and unique. I love that you get so much time with your kids every day. You can do so much more. I was a former Montessori teacher, and so we had large chunks of time with kids, and I love that so much, and it's hard to get. But let's hear some questions for Victoria.
Victoria, actually, I have a question for you. What, how has your, if you look back, like how has your project evolved? Like when you first started using MadLearn, like what did the first version of your project look like compared to what you're doing with them now?
Well, the first time I used it, they were connecting to a Google form.
Mhm.
And a lot of kids tend to do that, which is great. I mean, that's a more simplified version of this project where they make a Google form for the order form, and then they're able to bring it into a screen. I did still have students doing that. But now with the HTML code that you have and the pre-made sheets for them, I'm finding the students really making use of them. So
That's really nice to hear. And like I love what you were saying about them. And again, I never would have even thought about it, taking the code sets, putting them in and saying, here, make it better. Like that is so, it really is so innovative. It's so great to hear.
And I loved what you said about having AI be an additional team member, an additional collaborator on your team, because that is, and please, everyone here, everyone watching later, please hear this from business teachers like Victoria, from business owners like us. In industry, in business, we know if we are not using AI and AI well, we are far behind. And so when we are hiring people into our companies, we are looking for people who know how to use AI like the back of their hand. I am still learning and I am researching and trying to figure out how to use it well. When we're hiring a new team member, we want someone that can come in and teach us and know it already, because they are, they're kind of AI natives. We think about our kids today, they're digital natives, right? They're mobile natives. We didn't grow up with cell phones. The kids today obviously are born with them. So they're mobile natives, but the next sort of wave of our team members, of our colleagues, of our employees, of our kids is AI natives. So I'm so glad that you're focusing on that. I know across the country, there's different policies and regulations and approval processes around what we can use or not use in the classroom. But at the end of the day, when our kids leave our building and when they graduate and they go to college, they go into career, they are getting jobs. And all industries, every single one is heavily, heavily being changed by AI. So the more we can teach them, the better. Victor, go ahead. Question for Victoria. Anything you want to share?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, first I was blown away. I'm sitting here writing down ideas. I feel like I've been doing Mad Learn for a while, but I love these things when you can hear from different teachers. A couple of things. I'm sorry I got disconnected earlier. But to the first, to Cassie's point, I believe, or the teachers that spoke, sorry, that spoke after Cassie about the groups and how to do that. One of the things I found the strategies that's helpful is using the kind of like design team format. So I broke my kids down kind of, along the lines of what you were doing with the, coding people and the person might be over the design. Because also too, you want to be careful that there's not too many hands in the pot when the kids are building the app. So I had a person who was like the, project manager, and they were the person that was looking at the app. But what they did is that they came up with their own. So there was still a certain level of standard to, but each kid came up with almost like a list. So like the first 10 minutes of class was their project team meetings or the mini lesson if I needed to give them anything. So whatever the takeaway was for that day or the lesson I wanted to be, that was that first 10 minutes. And then it was up to them to collaborate and say, okay, these are the things. And then, we measure success from our code person having done this, and this. Our project manager will have completed the, uploading the logo. That is because what it does is it also, to Alefia's point about, we want to make sure we're preparing kids for the world that they're going into. So the reality is they're not all going to have to type HTML. That's the, but that if in the same way that, when you talk about producing a book, you have to have everybody has to have a fundamental understanding of the language in order to put their part of the project in. And so what you do is you give kids those clear things and then they end up assessing themselves. So that way it's not like, and I think it gives them a very good reality check. 'Cause I use it from, I'd say about third grade. I think third was the youngest I used it, but I used it all the way up through our high school kids. We actually did a thing in the AUC with some of the college kids here too, just on design thinking. And it's important that those skills, we model them. I think we kind of undervalue them because we call them the soft skills, but those are the things that kids, because again, we're not preparing them for the industrial revolution anymore, right? They're not going into these factories and working for hours kind of with that same menial thought. So they have to, like, collaboration is a really big deal now, critical thinking, being able to be creative, not only just in, colors, fonts, etc., but in the problem solving. So again, you want those kids to, it helps you as a teacher kind of map out what you want them to do, but it also gives the kids a very real, I think what makes things like this so awesome is they get that real world experience. So that's something that as a teacher, because it shouldn't look like you're assessing a regular class. It's not going to be like a worksheet or something like that. So you're allowing them to everybody finds their strong point, but two, they're also getting that very valuable real world experience. So yeah, but I'm always inspired. I feel like when I have it all figured out, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna try that. But yes, also Carolyn, very good. Thank you. I don't think I got a chance to tell you how awesome that coding edition has been, as an old OG computer science teacher. I thought but it's awesome that kids can now, so like even in our classrooms, if I do a unit on website building, one of the other things, again, we talk about kids knowing how vast this coding and this technology can take them. It's cool for them to be able to use the same skill. So I can teach an HTML lesson and then I could have kids building a website. I could have kids, building an app or figuring out how that looks in both, how do you make that HTML work in both, scenarios. So yeah, I think that took it from great. I was already convinced, but I think that took it from great to excellent. So always good to see how everybody else is getting on board. 'Cause it's awesome. So
Thank you. Thank you, Victor.
absolutely.
And I just want to share. So what Victor is talking about is earlier this year, we launched a whole new coding curriculum that has 3 levels, level 1, 2, and 3, for beginner students all the way up to advanced. And it is focused on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which are the underlying programming languages that we utilize and use and teach within MathLearn. But now we have a whole new fantastic coding curriculum, of course, aligned to CSTA standards and lots of other standards. But that's what Victor's talking about there. So I'm so glad you've gotten to see it and play with it and use it. So that is fantastic. Any other questions for Victoria? Hearing about how she's doing things in her business class, or Cassie, any other questions for our phenomenal teacher takeover presenters today?
Can I just say one more thing?
Please, of course.
One of the things also that I forgot to mention is that when I have the students working in these teams, how do you handle two children doing all the work for one? And At the end of the project, the students get 2 scores. They get 1 score for the actual project and another score for their performance on the team, and they get averaged together. And they evaluate each other. So they anonymously. So I give them all a sheet, an evaluation sheet. They all have to anonymously, not anonymous, like the other students don't get to see it. Only I see it. And, you know, I can have, and they know that 2 people on the same team, one can get a 95 and one could get a 65 based on their performance. This is working so seamlessly. Everyone is working because they know they're accountable, and because they know their grade matters. So it's like I've had to, over the years, when you asked, you know, what have I done differently over the years, I had to add that in because working in a team is different than working in a group. And I have to make sure that they really are accountable to one another. So I did want to mention that also.
Thank you. And Victoria, Fran has a question for you also in the chat. Do other BOCES on the island also offer these opportunities for students? Are there other Victorias and kinds of classes that you have with, you know, with districts across Long Island or even the state?
Well, we're on Long Island, we have 3 BOCES, and I know that there's one being taught in Nassau. I'm the only one teaching in Western Suffolk. I started the program about 8 years ago, so it's, as far as I know, I've had to write the whole program. I really didn't have much, you know, I had some help from Nassau BOCES. They were very helpful in getting me started 8 years ago. But most of what I've done has been just my own design.
And I will say, Fran, just to add to that as well, there are, I think, close to 20, maybe more schools on Long Island and districts on Long Island that use MadLearn in elementary, middle school, high school settings. But there's not a lot of classes that exist like Victoria's that are a centralized CTE class where kids come for half of the day and have an in-depth experience. So I love that model, and you know, I've seen it in a few pockets across the country, but it's not common. But I do want to be respectful of time. This is the power team here for you to get in touch with. If you have questions, comments, concerns, anything at all, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We're here for you as you're continuing to explore MadLearn, as you're starting it for the first time or doing it for the 8th time. We're thrilled that you're here and so excited to have you be a part of our journey, and thank you for letting us be a part of yours. Cassie, Victoria, thank you for sharing your story here with us today. We are so appreciative. Keep making the magic happen. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.